Well, it's time now for a look at the day's top business news, and for that I'm joined in the studio by Brian Quinn. Hi, Brian.
Hi, Haxie.
Now, we're starting with the massive infrastructure proposal put forward in the US by President Joe Biden. The plan to pay for it with corporate taxes going down not so well among some.
Not as bad as it could, though, you would have to say. Of course, a key element of that $2.3 trillion infrastructure plan is a tax hike on U.S. corporations from the current 21% up to 28%. Some prominent business groups, including the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, of course, have already come out against that idea. Plenty of large companies, though, are on the fence. An infrastructure overhaul has been on the wish list of American businesses for a while now. Many industries would in fact stand to benefit from the plan, among them construction and the electric vehicle sector. America's corporate tax rate stood at 35%, in fact, before Donald Trump's massive 2017 tax cuts. And with both profits and stock prices soaring as many Americans struggle during the pandemic, some feel it might not be the moment to push back on paying extra. The White House is hoping that's the case. Take a listen.
Corporations who have had their tax rate lowered to 21%, lower by a great margin than it's been ever in history, corporations that didn't pay any taxes in 2018, we think they can afford to help rebuild our workforce, help invest in industries of the future, and make sure our infrastructure makes us competitive with China.
Well, time now for a check on the markets. What are we seeing so far today, Brian?
Asian stock indexes are making some gains on the heels of a big Thursday session on Wall Street with a new record for the S&P 500 there. The Nikkei in Tokyo up around 1.6% as shares in investment giant SoftBank soar over 4% there. Mainland Chinese indexes on the rise as well amid strong growth in factory activity in China. The Shanghai Composite, though, up just 0.25% as China's central bank warns of the growing risk of debt default amid potential financial bubbles. The Hong Kong exchange is closed for the Easter holiday. The Kospi in Seoul up 0.2% to finish off the day there.
Well, next, Brian, the Easter holiday here in France is usually excellent for tourism operators in France. Lockdown, however, changing things somewhat.
Indeed, the French government says it's already spent 26 billion euros to support the tourism industry since the beginning of the pandemic, but it's facing calls for more financial aid as the latest lockdown measures force a wave of cancellations for the Easter weekend. Hotels and tour operators, of course, still reeling from their losses in 2020. As Ellen Gainsford reports.
The Easter holidays are usually a busy time for France's tourism industry. But the month-long lockdown could cost the travel sector 4 billion euros. It's calling for more government aid to cover the losses. This souvenir shop is going to have to close from Sunday.
On a reçu de la marchandise, donc on va déballer, on va faire des nouvelles vitrines, on va mettre en place, mais c'est tout ce qu'on va pouvoir faire malheureusement.
Before the pandemic, this hotel was always fully booked for Easter, but only 9 out of 27 rooms have been reserved for this weekend.
Chaque fois qu'il parle, on se retrouve à avoir des annulations complémentaires et derrière, pas de nouvelles réservations. Donc nous, aujourd'hui, on arrive difficilement à se projeter sur l'avenir et puis vous pouvez voir aussi sur le reste du mois, c'est-à-dire que le reste du mois, c'est totalement vide.
Down the road,
Bonjour.
this director of a holiday rental agency is trying to stay optimistic.
On a réussi quand même à faire une réservation pour ce week-end. Donc la dernière possibilité, c'est quand même de pouvoir venir là, profiter d'un bol d'air avant d'être confiné. C'est pas beaucoup, c'est toujours mieux que rien. Il faut voir le bon côté des choses.
With the travel sector still struggling after last year's setbacks, many in the industry will be pinning their hopes on the summer season.
And finally, for business, Brian, with April Fool's Day now behind us, we can take stock of the year's best and worst branding attempts.
Indeed, April Fool's jokes, of course, long a staple of corporate branding. The pandemic, though, saw the chuckles mostly put on hold for 2020. They were back in 2021, from Velveeta Cheese's skincare line to Legos that automatically avoid being stepped on. One joke that backfired, though, carmaker Volkswagen's announcement of a permanent name change to Volkswagen in the U.S. as it moves to electric vehicles. One problem, they announced it days ahead of April 1st, then insisted to media outlets that it was not a prank. Many critics also noting that the company's history of using falsehoods to sell vehicles in the Dieselgate emissions scandal might make it wise to avoid such attempts at humor.
Perhaps telling April Fool's jokes is not the right strategy for a company that has not told the truth in the past. You don't tell an April Fool's joke on days other than April Fools. You don't ask people to participate in the joke that are not part of the joke, the press and the media. You don't take advantage of them. And you keep it short and sweet. And they did all those things wrong. So they took an okay idea and they botched it.
Maybe not everybody should be, I guess.
Brian Quinn with a look for the day's top business stories. Thank you very much.